This is 3SP, and I'm coming at you with another report. The main source of this one comes from Breitbart. Report: Trump ending Obama's covert CIA program to arm and train Syrian rebels. President Donald Trump is reportedly ending a covert CIA program to arm and train Syrian rebel forces that dates back to 2013. I'm not going to read this whole article. And the main thing is that we really don't know who these people are. And that's something President Trump said himself. We don't really know who these people are. And the only reason that we're funding these so-called rebels is that, according to intelligence agencies, they say that Assad, the president of Syria, he's a supporter of ISIS and he funds terrorism throughout the world. And again, this is something that there hasn't really been any concrete evidence offered for. And it reminds me a lot of the reasons why we went to Iraq. I was a teenager back in 2003 when the soldiers went into Iraq. And the main thing that was coming through the White House and through the intelligence agencies, their secret word was WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. Our intelligence agencies have evidence that Saddam Hussein is manufacturing weapons of mass destruction that can be used against the United States, and not showing any real evidence to the American people. They went ahead and went into a war, one of the worst wars in American history, that caused so much death and destruction, based off of this one-liner that he has WMDs. And this was based off the outrage that was garnered by the attack that took down the World Trade Centers and the plane, so-called plane that flew into the White House, which is also another attack that they knew ahead of time, that, again, the intelligence agencies informed the president of back then, that was being planned, and there was nothing done to stop it. And the intelligence agencies back then showed that, 19 of the hijackers came from Saudi Arabia. None of them came from Iraq. None of them. But again, then we turn around after we're attacked and we're going to say that was Saddam Hussein and that he has WMDs, and we need to declare a war on a concept, not even on a certain country, not declaring a war on people of a specific person or a specific group, but on a concept called terrorism. Now, when you declare war on a concept, you're declaring war on something that you could change the definition of. And if you have a war with something that you're changing the definition of, that means you have a war that technically will never end. Now we see that there is a lot of terrorism, and the real reason for that is because of our war on terrorism. The real reason that there's an ISIS right now is because of us going into Iraq and taking out the government and destabilizing it. So by us destabilizing Iraq, the different groups that were basically the government and the different groups that were fighting each other, we took out the government of Iraq. Therefore, it left a vacuum of power in the Middle East, mainly the one that was being fought between Iraq and Iran, to where now Iraq became desolate. It became a place where terrorism could actually grow. and no longer is the threat against these different Middle Eastern countries fighting each other over their own beliefs, their own differences and beliefs. Now there's actually a place where they could raise up and train to fight people in the West and to make a new unified uh, Islamic State. And what they call IS or Islamic State is on a certain brand or an extreme version of Islam. And again, that's our fault. That's the United States' fault for letting that happen. If we never went in there and tried to be the world police for one, which really I think there was really another reason why we went into Iraq. But again, becoming the world police and declaring war and fighting a war that isn't even ours, we now created a giant worldwide crisis, not only with ISIS, but the so-called the Syrian refugee issue that's happening mainly in Europe right now. Our actions in Iraq caused a domino effect that's causing people to flood Europe right now. And that's American interventionism that caused that. And now we're in a place where, like President Trump, he ran on the promises of basically pulling us out of a lot of countries and taking us out of a lot of wars. But there would be an extremely negative effect to our own national security if we do that now. We have caused ourselves to have to be in a war because of a war that we started. And a lot of people say it was because of oil, and that might be true, but it's not the Americans right now that have control of those oil fields. It's ISIS, and they're selling it mainly to Turkey, which is another Islamic country. And I'm not here being an Islamophobe or Muslim bashing, but basically just trying to talk about a real situation. Now, getting back to what this article is talking about, where Trump decided to stop funding these Syrian rebels. And it's all based off of a video that he's seen, which if I move my camera, I'll be able to pull up. Oh, where's it at? But really, anyway, even if I don't have it anymore, it was another article where in 2016, where these group of fighters who are supposed to be the rebel forces that the United States is funding, they caught a what looks like to be a 10-year-old boy, and they have him in back of a truck, and there's 5 of these gentlemen there, and they're smiling, and they look proud of themselves that they captured this boy. And the article has the YouTube video where it shows the guys taunting him, pulling his hair, smacking him. Then another guy comes from behind, just pulls his head back and starts sawing his head off. I didn't see the video. I heard it described. And luckily the video was taken down because it was on YouTube. I'm glad it was, because if I would have saw it, I'm pretty sure it would have messed me up. But again, these are the United States-backed forces that are fighting in Syria. They're the ones that are supposedly fighting the people who are funding ISIS. And they're beheading children. So that shows you that most likely these people that we're calling the rebel fighters, they're probably ISIS. And this actually goes along with the narrative that the Syrian president and also the Russian president Putin have been saying all along, is that the people fighting in Syria, they're ISIS. They're the ones who are fighting Assad and the government of Syria. They are ISIS. Plus, it goes back to some pictures back in 2015. Actually 2013 and 2014, where John McCain, went to go and meet these uh, backed rebels, the United States backed rebels. And when he took a picture of them, people on the internet have identified different people in that picture who are supposed to be the leaders of this Free Syrian movement, have been identified as Al Qaeda and ISIS people that fight for Al Qaeda and fight for ISIS. So, and also when President Trump sent those 59 missiles and shot different locations, mainly the Air Force base in Syria, because of Syrian fighter jets bombing the U.S. backed forces. That was what the Syrians said, is that we're not the ones that gassed the people. We actually bombed ISIS fighters. And then the United States said, no, those were our American backed forces. So, again, therefore, that's confirmation that the U.S. backed forces are ISIS. It's a CIA program. Plus, if you ever, I've never seen one, but I've heard people a lot of times talk online. If you look at these ISIS training videos, the training that ISIS is given is like Navy SEAL, United States military style training. And then they have all American weaponry. Plus, the different vehicles in pictures that they show. Like I seen a picture maybe 2 years ago of a Syrian, ISIS fighters who were fighting in Syria. They had this Toyota pickup truck that had a man's business name and phone number on it, that he was a plumber in Texas, and he traded his truck in to get a new one. So when he upgraded, somehow that truck was sold and sent to Syria, and the ISIS fighters were using it. Again, that's more evidence that these ISIS fighters are the United States backed Syrian fighters. So again, I'm proud of Trump. There's a lot of criticism I could have for Donald Trump, but I am so happy. I'm so happy. I applaud Donald Trump for pulling the funding on this. I'm so proud. I'm so happy. I really could cry right now. I'm not going to, but this really had to end. And they really need to make an investigation on how we started funding ISIS and where did it come from. Even in his campaign, he said that ISIS should be thanking Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton because they're the ones that founded ISIS. And this might actually be large proof of that. And that's where I'm going to leave it. And this is 3SP signing out.